Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Rylee Meek. How you doing today, Rylee?
Doing great, Ben. Happy to be here, man.
Well, I'm so happy to be able to chat with you today, man. I really appreciate you carving out the time because I really want to ask you, what is your story?
Oh my goodness, how long we got?
Have quite a while, so I'd love if you start right at the beginning.
You want me to start right at the beginning?
Oh yeah.
All right, cool. Let's get into this. So, yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small town, South Dakota, like small town, 900 people, and I grew up kind of a broken home. My parents were divorced, got divorced at the age of 5. Kind of back and forth a fair amount between mom and dad and stepdad. And at the age of 15, I was kind of introduced to, the entrepreneurship world. My family was big into network marketing and things like that. And I thought like, okay, that's cool. I think that's the route that I want to go. I'm just in high school though. I'm going to go get a job, and I wanted to, contribute to buy my first car, things along those lines. And I remember I took my first job at a gas station, making pizza, hot stuff pizza at a small town gas station. And I worked my first 8-hour shift, and I was getting paid $5.15 an hour. So, minimum wage back then. And I remember at the end of the 8-hour shift, I was like, okay, that sucked. But I did the math in my head, and I was like, there's no way. I remember just like specifically, like I was so mad that not only did I do that for that, $40, not even once we take taxes out, but I was more so mad that I allowed somebody else to put that value on me. And that first day was my last day. And I really thought then, okay, I'm going to dive into this kind of entrepreneurship journey. And I started to attend all these events. If anybody's done any network marketing, the rah-rah, drink the Kool-Aid type of things. And believe me, I drank the Kool-Aid, that's for sure. But it was an amazing time in my life because I grew so much as a person. Just that atmosphere of personal development and surrounding yourself with the right people. And, that concept of iron sharpens iron is true, man. And I graduated high school at the age of 17, and literally the day I graduated high school, my bags were packed, and I moved up to the Twin Cities where I reside now in Minneapolis. And it wasn't really just to go to the city, but it was more so just to like get out of where I was, because they're just, unless you're a farmer or rancher or something, there's not a whole lot going on back in South Dakota. It's a great place to be from. It's just, it just wasn't for me. And I moved up to the Twin Cities, and I started college at a small community college. Kind of thought my path was going to be chiropractic, but I started making some pretty decent money selling these nutritional supplements. This company that I was with, and it wasn't something that one of the things that I didn't enjoy about network marketing was always, and what nobody enjoys is like hounding your friends and family and things, right? It's like, I hated that. And so I wanted to get creative and figure out how could I reach people that I didn't know. And we came up with this campaign, and we called it "We Pay You to Lose Weight." And we put these little ads in these cheap little newspapers. And I tell you, man, my phone rang off the hook. And we rented this little office space, and people were coming in. And I that was my first kind of put together this cool campaign of, okay, how could I present this into good, better, best, and just stuff that I didn't really know, but I've started to read all these books on, sales, and I just kind of self-taught myself through this process on how to deliver a presentation, and started making some good money. By the time I was 19, I was retailing between 10 and 15 grand a month. And was, I bought my first BMW. I thought I was, pretty something. And my plan was really to go on to chiropractic college. My brother-in-law was a chiropractor, and I love that whole concept of, more so wellness, nutrition, not necessarily medicines and drugs and things like that. And so I love that idea. I started making money, and I was like, well, why do I want to go $150,000 in debt when I can do this? And I loved working with people. And I quickly realized, though, that my income, one of the most attractive things to people with a network marketing company or MLM or whatever you want to call it is that, I remember them always calling it that mailbox money, or that concept of a residual income. And the campaign that I put together, as successful as it was based solely on my efforts. It wasn't a system that was really duplicatable. And so I had that realization and thought, yeah, I'm making decent money, but I'm working like 16, 17 hours a day. This is a lot. I'm taking the calls, I'm, selling the products, presenting, doing the follow-ups, and it was a lot of work. And I thought, okay, well, ultimately my income is pretty much gauged by the amount of time in a day. And I started to look at different opportunities, and multiple opportunities were kind of at my lap. But one of them was opening up operations in another country for this particular network marketing company. And at the age of, I was 23 at the time, I bought a one-way ticket to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And we were opening up Malaysia, and I didn't know a soul over there. I'd talked, that at that time, like, this wasn't a real thing. I was, heck, man, how old? I'm 34 now, so 11 years ago, it's not like we were live streaming too much. And it's like I emailed a couple dudes in North Carolina, and they're like, yeah, we'll meet you. You can crash on our couch. And it's like, all right, I'm going over there. And I flew over there, and it was I think it was a 10 or 12 hour flight from Minneapolis here to Tokyo. And I started to have like a mental breakdown. I was like, what am I doing? I'd barely been out of the country at that time, but I knew I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. And that was really the driving force for it. And I had a 13-hour layover, and I just started to panic attack. I ultimately made it to Kuala Lumpur, and I spent a day and a half there, called Delta Airlines and begged them to get me back on a flight home. And it was just, I was a wreck, man. Came home and was a complete, I just felt like I was a failure. I'd spent a lot of money to make this happen. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? Should I go back to school? Should I, am I really an entrepreneur? Is this for me? Probably what a lot of entrepreneurs go through on that total kind of crazy cycle. But I ultimately was like, all right, well, I like the concept of making that residual income. Maybe I'll be an insurance guy. So I went and got my Series 6, 63, my health and life. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to sell insurance. This is going to be great. And again, part of that, anytime you come on board with a new company, it's always go to friends and family. And that was just one of the things that I didn't want to do. It's like I'd already gone down that path. And I didn't want to do it again, selling, another product and then another product and another product. That was just something that I didn't want to have to deal with. So I ultimately saw this ad on careerbuilder.com back then, and it said make $80,000 a year in direct sales. And it turns out it was like a home remodeling company, like windows and siding and selling. And they set the appointments for you, so I didn't have to like cold call or anything. It was either like telemarketing leads. But I remember one thing that when I went to interview, first off, I showed up in like a suit and tie, and everybody else is roaming around in like flannels and blue jeans. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not in the right spot. But he offered me a job on the spot, really, and said 85% of this job is negative. And if you can focus on that 15%, you will make 6 figures. And I thought, okay, I could do that. I mean, that's not a problem. And that's really what I held to for, the next couple of years. And I was making 6 figures at a, early 20s. I was making good money. But it was that 15% was what really got me through. But I just remember thinking to myself back then, it's like, okay, I'm making decent money, but again, this isn't what I'm not going to attain wealth doing this, because my time is really where, I can do a 2 or 3 hour presentation, but I can only do 3 or 4 of those a day and be exhausted at the end of the day. And my income was ultimately still capped by the amount of time in a day.
Right.
And I ended up, I ended up wanting to get back into the fitness nutrition industry. And But I didn't want to go work for anybody. Through that process too, I was a physical fitness trainer, and so I had some clients and things, and I thought, well, I'm not going to make enough money just personal training people, so why don't I buy a gym? And I bought my first brick and mortar like business, an Anytime Fitness franchise. I don't know if you got those down there, but it was a great kind of leap of, I'd made some decent money, so I was able to put some money down, get an SBA loan, and I thought this is it, man. I'm gonna really, this is gonna be my living. I'm gonna own multiple franchises, and I quickly realized that if you build it, they don't come. Like, you got to go get them. And I've never worked so hard in my life and made so little. 16, 17 hours a day, and at the end of the year, it was like I had nothing to show for it. And I was like, all right, well, I got to do something different, because this is just not for me. And I came across another opportunity, another network marketing company, and they were opening up operations in Mexico. And I was like, here we go again. But Mexico, I can handle Mexico. I can speak and at least get around. I know to say El Baño or whatever. But I rented out my condo. I had a condo up here in the Twin Cities, and I teamed up with another guy down there. We put like a 6-month lease, put money down on a condo in Puerto Vallarta. And I packed up shop and went down there, and things were going well. It was progressing. It was like, this is cool. We're really doing it. I was 24 at the time here, I think. And 5 months into it, the Mexican government actually shut us down. Whoa. And it was quite devastating. I mean, it was like, we thought we were really building this thing, and they basically said, get out of here. And I caught a flight back to Minnesota, tail between my legs. Not only had I spent pretty much all my money again on this, but I was homeless. I mean, I'd rented out my condo, and I couldn't just kick them out. So I crashed on my sister's couch. Through that was like in April. And over the next couple months, I was just like, I still owned my Anytime Fitness franchise, but it wasn't producing me any income of, any value really. I was just getting by. And I was just sitting there again at the age of 24 with like my second midlife crisis by then. I was like, what in the heck am I gonna do here? And I just searched online, and I was just trying to think of ideas, like, what could I do this? Could I do that? Or is there a business opportunity, or what should I do? And I remember one night, it was late at night, I came across this ad on Craigslist, of all places. And it said, work 3 days a week and make $10,000. And I thought, yeah, right. But the entrepreneur spirit within me just made me inquire. I'm late at night, and I send the inquiry, and I get a call the next day, and I'm talking through this sales position with this manager. And he started talking about doing presentations and selling to like groups of people. And I was like, okay, well, this sounds interesting, because I've always only sold like one-on-one. And he's like, I tell you what, I got a presentation in a couple of days, come on down. So I hopped in the car, I drove down about an hour, I met with him, and it completely blew my mind. I walked in the room, and this guy had like 25 people in the room. He did one rock star presentation, and at the end of it, he bought them a free steak dinner, which is fine, it was cool. He gained that like know, like, and trust with these people, which is what I thought I was good at with sales. But at the end of it, he asked for appointments, and then he met with those the next day, and then ultimately closed deals. And I was like, holy, like that's all you have to do is like one presentation. It took him an hour and a half. And I was used to doing like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day of just presenting, which is exhausting. And I remember leaving there, I drove back home, and my mind was just like spinning. I was like, man, is this real? What could be sold through this process? And a few months later, I started my own company doing these presentations, or dinner seminar marketing. And I remember, dude, I had my very first event, I had $673 in my bank account. And I remember driving to this event going, this is it. Like, this is do or die. This is like what I've got to make this work one way or the other. And, I took some concepts of what he was selling and added a few other products to it. And I just remember driving down there. It's like 2.5 hours. I don't even know how I picked this town, but I drove there, did this event, and made some sales. And I was like, okay, this kind of works. And struggled kind of ups and downs, and started to learn a lot through this process. And I things started to kind of click. My very first 6 months through this, I had sold like 2.1 million in sales. And we're talking like home remodeling products that, dude, my wife hangs the pictures in my house. So I am the least mechanical. I mean, I can't handle anything like that. If the light switch doesn't turn on, I'm calling the electrician. Like, I don't know. Probably the bulb, change the bulb up. But I was selling these products because I knew how to communicate with people, and that I realized that we were kind of developing a system. And so I started to hire on some people that I knew. I was like, I think you could do this too. And like I said, that first 6 months, we did like 2 million in sales. The next year, we added on a few more people. We did just over 12 million in business. We did another 12 million the next year. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. I'm making great money. What else could we sell through this process? And we started to add in I started a different company and sold different products. Started another company, sold different products, and it was like, this is great. But I quickly realized that as wonderful as I thought life was, because I was making a great income, it was very unfulfilling. And for anybody that's made a decent amount of money, I can probably almost guarantee they've experienced this feeling at some point, unless it was truly something that they really were passionate about it and loved, because that was what I struggled with. And like I said, like, I could barely hang pictures, let alone I'm selling these home remodeling products. And it's like, great, I'm helping these people. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't give two rips about this. I'm able to provide money for my family. We're living a great lifestyle. But I remember this one evening I came home. It was a Wednesday night. It was late. I was out selling. I did presentations and sold these products. And I ended up, coming home. My wife and daughter were already asleep. And I sat down at the kitchen table and was just like, what am I doing here? Like, what, I just felt like there's more to life than this. And that just, it's not just about making money, because once you make money, you quickly realize that that's not what it's actually about. And I needed to develop that passion, that drive. And I just thought back to like, what was it that I was truly passionate about, and when was I most happy in life? And it was really when I was surrounded by those like-minded people, and I that ironing, sharpening iron. And I wanted to be able to pour into people and teach people how to do what we've done. And I, rather than constantly grasping at like, what's the next product that we could sell or the service that we could sell, it was like, okay, what if we are the product? Like, what if like that is more of the concept? And I thought back to when I first started about, my income was constantly leveraged by my time and the constant struggle of trying to find the next lead in the sale. And I knew that there were sales reps out there, entrepreneurs, companies out there that were passionate about what they had, what they could offer. They just didn't know how to reach people. And I mean, if you build it, they don't come. Like I had said before, it's like, you've got to be able to have a sales system. You can have the greatest product in the world. I don't care if anybody sells the products. If anybody says the product sells itself, I do not believe that at all. Because if you don't have a way to reach the masses, like it just isn't going to work. And so I thought, man, like, what if this was the actual concept? What if I could pour into people and teach people and move more into coaching and consulting and showing them how to, not only make a sale, but make a sustainable, a predictable, sustainable, and even to show them how to scale their business to another level. And that's what I did is I just started to write, which little did I know was like the beginning of like a first book that I put together in this concept of selling to the masses, or selling one to many, which is more of like what I've coined that as the social dynamic selling system. And that's what I've been doing, man, over the last couple of years now, is just teaching people, coaching businesses and sales reps and entrepreneurs how to, not only do dinner seminars and presentations, but to really, peel back the onion on their life and determine what is it they really want. And it's never money. Like, money is only a measurement tool. And I really love to dive into, like, what is it truly that you want? Like, what is that actually going to mean for you and do for you and your family to take you to the next level and do what your God-given ability is. Like, we've all been given an ability to do excellent things, and we just have to find what that actually is. And it's our job to be excellent at that. And that's what I love to be able to do with people and take them down this path of getting them to open up their mindset and their vision to make that decision to getting to that actual next level. Is that my story? Is that good?
That was awesome. That was phenomenal. So I'm curious about this concept of using your sales system as the vehicle to help people figure out what they really want to do and why they really want to do that. Because it seems like when you boil it down, like, to the essence of what you're doing is you're really helping people figure out who they really are and like totally triple down on their gifts and their strengths and use that to then, fuel the rest of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it in what you're just saying is a lot of it comes down to, when I say money is only really a measurement of what a person actually already is. And, I don't want to be too vulgar, but if somebody's a butthead, we'll say, and they make a lot of money, they're just a butthead with a lot of money. You know what I mean? They were always a butthead, like, at the core of it. And so I love to be able to expose that by, and if that is getting them to, develop a sales system to get them, to expose who they truly are, then we can work with something. But it's because if somebody doesn't know who they truly actually are, you're never going to get to that next level or accomplish what it is that they want to accomplish. And so I love sitting down with somebody and just talking through that, what is it that you really want in life? And if it's not, I don't want to act like money is like the all end all be all by any means, because it's not. I mean, there's plenty of happy people that don't have a lot of money, and there's even more so probably miserable people that have a ton of money. And it exposes things that we can actually, poke and prod at and get to the actual root of what, maybe there's some inner demons and things like that we can expose to help them get to that next level, to be the best version of them that they can actually be.
What does that process actually look like for drilling down into the core of who you are to figure, like I'm so interested in trying to find those demons, right? Because I feel like that is absolutely what's holding most people back, whether we call it limiting beliefs or like whether it's some sort of emotional obstacle or whatever it is. Getting ourselves out of our own way is super duper helpful. And, whenever we do that, I truly believe that, there's no limit to what we can then go on to accomplish. And it's so important because, like, you never know what somebody is capable of. I mean, somebody could solve like the world hunger, but they can't get past this one little thing that may seem little to everybody else, but to them may seem really big. So I think your work is tremendously important. So I'm curious, like, how do you actually drill down into that?
So, I mean, numerous ways, but really, when I talk about that ironing, sharpening iron, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the rapport that I would have with an individual, just like you and I. And, if you've gained enough rapport with somebody and have that relationship, you can call people out on their BS, which is most of what is the head trash that we've all got going on. Is that we just think that we just can't accomplish that, or we've been told that, in our childhood, just little things have been told to us that we're worthless, or we're never going to accomplish this, or we're never going to accomplish this. And subconsciously, that is detrimental to kids. I mean, I just think of my 7.5-year-old, like literally every day, every morning on the way to school, we are talking about like what she's going to do and accomplish, and that she is excellent and beautiful and strong, and she's, the favor of God is upon her. And like, that is so important for people, not to think that this world is an easy place. And like, I mean, life happens. Life, I mean, can suck if you choose to focus on that. And even if I go back to one of my very first managers, like I said, focus on the 15% and you can live a wonderful life. But if, you know, you wake up, I remember I bought a decent house here that, you know, is a decent amount of money. And I remember one of my father's first comments was, "How much are the taxes?" I'm just like, why do you think that way? Like, why can't you just be happy that we've got this wonderful home to live in? And it's like, it's what you choose to focus on is, I think, what a lot of people get hung up on, or, you know, that holds them back from making, you know, that next step or that next stride in their life to get over that head trash that they've probably been dealing with for a long time.
It seems like one of the key pieces is having somebody who you can kind of go back and forth with, or who at least has enough of a relationship with you to where they can help you identify the things that may be going on day to day that you may not be able to see because it's, you know, like you're too deep in it. You can't see what's right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's if whether I'm working with somebody, you know, one-on-one or even a group, like, I'm going to ask permission to be real and to be frank with people, because I will call them out. If I don't have that permission, then really we're probably not going to work well together. Because if you're not willing to open up and be a vulnerable, really, and I think I remember back in, you know, when I first moved up to Minnesota, I had 0 friends, and I got involved with this solid group of dudes at this little community college that I went to. And all of us still to this day, we had such a bond and a relationship where it was just like, still to this day, 15 years later, we could just like pick up like that, because we had just that amazing time together, that brotherhood together, where it was like, we are all there to encourage and to help and to support, but also to call you on your crap if you're being an idiot, you know? And I think if people had more of those relationships in their life, or surrounded themselves with those type of people and gave people the ability to be vulnerable with them, it's amazing. It's freeing. It's just this sense where I am who I am, and not like I am who I am, just take it or leave it, but it's like, this is who I am. I know I've got some garbage, some baggage. We all do. And, you know, me, I probably have the most of anybody. And to have that relationship is amazing. And whether that's a bro, or, you know, sometimes it can be your spouse, it's important to be able to have that in any relationship in order to actually be vulnerable and get it to excel to that next level.
I also think it is super, super critical when you're picking those people to like really vet those people on the front end, because I mean, in a state of vulnerability, like when we choose to let somebody, and this is of course my opinion, I believe when we choose to let people like really like into our inner circle, at some point, what they're saying, their beliefs, their advice, their opinions, all of that stuff will get soaked up in our subconscious, and our subconscious does not have the ability to filter. It blindly accepts. So like, I think it's so critical to like really, really be careful about who you choose to be part of that circle.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. That's great. That's a great takeaway there. Cause that's big. I'm I guess a master practitioner in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and being able to get, you know, speaking into the subconscious is a huge thing. You know, whether I utilize it a lot from my, you know, the social dynamic selling system, but just from a personal development and coaching side of thing. So that's an amazing thing to be able to get past that gatekeeper and be able to speak to that subconscious, because most people go through the day not even knowing that they're negative, or they're just like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like, I mean, I'm just trying to think of an example. It's like, we just had this, wonderful dinner and we've had a great company and you're complaining that it's raining out. It's just like, focus on the positive. Life's way too short to focus on that. And, I hear the saying, it's like, you only live once, so live to your best of your ability. But I disagree. I think you only die once. You live every single day. And if you choose to live like that, I mean, there's literally, we're so blessed, especially here in the States, man. We are just so blessed to have this life. And I think we take it for granted so often and get down in the dumps and just look at all the garbage and the negative. I mean, I can't even turn the news on anymore. It's just nothing but garbage. And if you allow that to consume you subconsciously, like you said, I mean, that's what it does, is it literally can consume you.
So at this point, it seems like you've done a lot of work on yourself, and obviously you're working with a lot of other people, but what questions do you still have about yourself?
Man, every day I have questions about myself. But I think it's how you respond to those questions is the most important thing, because there's still days where it's like I've been, again, the word successful is so subjective on so many levels, but I feel like I've had a successful run in business and entrepreneurship. But there's still days where I'm literally like, I question myself at times. It's like, did I really do this? Is it this me, or is this just like, am I lucky? Or, and I know deep within, I am here for a purpose and a reason. And, I know what my abilities are. I definitely know what my weaknesses are. And I think even as important as it is to identify your strengths, it's just as important to identify your weaknesses and to be able to, even just in business. I think one of the reasons that we've done so well is because I've been able to delegate and surround myself not only with just like-minded people, but with the right-minded people. I mean, that's a big concept. It's, if I just had everybody that just thought like I did, that's not necessarily a good thing. It's more of the right-minded people that think appropriately, but maybe differently about certain things. And I think being able to delegate and assign people certain roles has really been helpful for me to be able to focus on what I know I am good at and within my wheelhouse. And that's not always the case for, entrepreneurs starting out. Like, I had to be everything, the end all be all for my company the first few months until I could afford to delegate and assign tasks. But ultimately, that was really what allowed me to scale, because I was able to do that and then focus again. I'm a firm believer that the pilots fly, the chefs cook, and everybody has a role. And that way everybody can be excellent in everything that they do. And that's really what I think a lot of it comes down to, is just, even when I question or second guess myself on certain things, it's like, I'm just going to do the best that I know I can do and be excellent. I mean, that's the last thing that I say to my daughter when she gets out of school, or when she gets out of the car and when I go to school. It's like, just be excellent today. It doesn't mean you have to get 100% on your test or everything, but just be excellent. If you approach life with that attitude, like, things are just going to go well. You know what I mean? It's like, if versus just going through life like, I tried. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, just be excellent, do your best, and good things will come.
Curious, because I think about this a lot, and I love talking to other people who are really ambitious about this. But how do you figure out, or how have you figured out, like, what your best really is? Like how do you just keep pushing it and going higher and higher and higher and pushing yourself further and further and further? And what is the limit to that?
Yeah. Good question, man, because I lay in bed and think of, when I'm recapping the day, or I'm just laying there kind of meditating, it's like, okay, did I really accomplish what I wanted to today? Was I actually excellent? And a lot of days I'm not. I mean, that's just, I'm tired, didn't get, a good night's rest last night, or something came up or whatever. I mean, we're not always, my stance on that is like, we have to set the bar high enough for us to constantly achieve it, or at least take the lid off. I mean, there's never a cap, I don't think. And I think everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that part of that, surrounding yourself with the right group of people, allows you to have that mindset continually. And if you truly recap your day and have that thought, like, you know what, I could have made that extra call, whether it's in business, or I could have told my wife I loved her. Why didn't I go just give her a hug when she was venting? Just things like that, I think is important to check yourself, like do a daily recap, not to get down on yourself, but to encourage yourself of what you need to do for the next day, and just make those steps. If you start to do that on a regular basis, back to that kind of subconscious, that's just naturally going to happen. And if you start to be intent and live with an intent, that naturally becomes your new way of life. And so if it's uncomfortable for the first few days, it's going to be, but if you live intentionally, it naturally becomes a part of your normal day of life.
I actually think that uncomfortability is such a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that means we're pushing it, and we're yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, dude. Like, sometimes I have days where things are just going so well, and then I'm like, I'm waiting for like the ball to drop. It's like I want that resistance, and everybody does. I mean, if you push on somebody's hand, they're always going to push back, and like that's just a natural give and flow of. If they don't, then it's like, what am I doing? It's not fun, yeah. And that's, I think, what life is about. It's just like if we're not constantly moving forward or getting better, we're getting worse. There's no such thing of like just maintaining. Truly, I mean. No different than on our weight. Like I don't just maintain my weight. Like sometimes I'm a few pounds heavier or a few pounds lighter or whatever, and it's just because of what I did that day before or what I didn't do the day before. And like if you live intentionally, understand what you're consuming or not consuming, like you can get better or get worse. But it's living intentionally and having that purpose, just feeling that of the feeling of what you're doing is providing valuable, service, or just providing value to just the world in general.
So I want to ask two separate things, but they're related. The first is I want to talk about pivoting, because I think that's so interesting. Your story of, I mean, you pivoted a lot and did a lot of really interesting things. And I think one, that takes a lot of stones to do, but two, I think you also just have to know when to do it and when not to do it, right? So the first question is, how did you identify when it was right to pivot and exactly where and what to pivot to? And to give just kind of give a little bit more context to the question, I believe in order to really truly excel and to be an expert or be a master, I mean, you have to work at things, and you have to practice day in and day out. I mean, Bill Gates, for example, that dude didn't just wake up a brilliant programmer. Like he freaking sat in the computer lab in, I think, 8th grade, and like sat there and coded day in and day out, would fall asleep coding, wake back up, and immediately just start coding. You know what I mean? So like he just kept going. So how did you identify when to pivot, but at the same time give yourself the ability to become the expert, become a master, and to do that practice and like develop your skills?
Yeah. I think a lot of it early on when I was young, and I'll even say young and dumb. I mean, if you're young, you're dumb. You are not dumb, but you're kind of maybe gleefully oblivious is maybe a better thing, not dumb. But when I was trying to figure this out, like I didn't come from money. It was just like I had to figure it out. And when, sometimes that's the best situation to be in life, is like, just, you got to figure it out. Like, if I don't make this sale, that was my thought process when I was driving to that first campaign that I'd invested all my money into. It's like, if I don't make this sale, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I mean, I certainly left out some personal details out of there too, above and beyond that. It was like, my wife was pregnant at the time, and it was like, not only do I not make this sale, but it was like, we're literally sleeping on my sister's couch. My wife's pregnant, and like, I've got to figure this out. And so it was a bit, again, more than just about me personally trying to figure out what I needed to do. But I knew one thing I needed to do, and that was provide for my family first and foremost. And that, I think, that allowed me to make the right decisions eventually. Certainly I made a lot of, I don't even want to call them wrong decisions, but I think every decision I made led me to the position that I'm in right now. Because if we're not, there's never failure, there's only feedback. If you allow that to take place in your life, and that if you view something as an actual failure, then you're viewing it incorrectly. Like, just take that feedback. What have we learned from that? Let's not dwell on it. Doesn't do any good, but let's just learn from it and then pivot. Like you said, make that adjustment. Is that what you enjoyed doing? Okay, then let's figure out how to actually do that correctly. Or if that wasn't what you enjoyed doing, like, when I was selling windows and siding, I didn't enjoy doing that. I knew I could sell, so I took that concept and moved it to a different platform. And I took that concept, moved it to a different platform, and ultimately found the path that was best for me. And so most of that is really, I think, your gut, your intuition, or your whatever you want to call it. I mean, I feel like I've had multiple downloads to me before on like what I need to do in certain situations. And if you allow yourself to be open to that or susceptible to that, I think you're in a good position right away to have that intuition and that gut feeling to take in those certain circumstances. So yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is really just, and I'm kind of referring to when I'm young. And if you're older and you're in that situation, it's no different. If you take the concept that there's no failure, there's only feedback. And if you allow that to ring true in your life and just learn from those mistakes, not dwell on them, but learn from them, just move on to the next thing, and it'll all work out. If you have that true mindset, not only consciously, but subconsciously, and owning that, I think, is the key, man.
So the follow-up to that is, I feel like one super critical aspect is of like decision making and figuring out, all right, I was doing this, now I need to move over here. There's a lot of calculated risk taking, right? So how have you kind of balanced the two extremes of calculated risk taking and like being crazy? Because I feel like this personally, like, I've definitely made some like very calculated moves, and I made some freaking crazy moves at the same time. And like, sometimes, or a lot of times, we don't have any feedback externally to be able to shine or shed light on that before we make the decision. Only retroactively do we know, oh man, that was freaking crazy. So like,
right.
So how have you gone about that decision-making process?
Yeah. So I've had multiple experiences with this, and part of it, I think, is who you've surrounded yourself with, and do you trust them in their opinions? I've had a lot of people around me and in my life that don't necessarily always want the best for you, or they externally maybe want that, but internally, like, now that I'm, in retrospect, like you said, it's like now I really see like where, a lot of people, especially, a lot of people's friends and family don't necessarily want them to excel and surpass them in certain aspects of life. And being able to, as hard as it can be, to wean those people out of your life is something you got to do. If personally that's the decision you want to make to continually strive and excel and move forward, sometimes you gotta trim the fat. And so I think a lot of that, in that gut feeling, that intuition of, I'm not getting feedback from anybody else, I just need to make this decision, that you need to, look at it. Does it make sense to make this decision or this decision? And what happens? Look at the consequences of both. And for me, like I said, when I did that first campaign, the consequence was I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. Like, it's just like, I got to do this. So there wasn't a plan B, and it was like, that's how I approached it. And sometimes a plan B, as good as it is, and now that I have the ability financially to have plan Bs, it's nice because it takes that stress off. But it also, I mean, there's times where it probably limits me in that fact that I have a plan B and I don't need to approach this with all my gumption or my gut. And I think, I mean, that's really where people's true self arises on. Like, this is it, do or die. Like, this is, if you put yourself in that spot, you'll find a way. I mean, the bubbles always rise to the top, and if you can find a way to do it and put yourself in that spot, I mean, I believe that the human intuition, it will always succeed in that. And then, you know, sometimes that's what it takes when you're down to nothing, and that's the only option that you have left. I mean, this is kind of, I'm talking through this, man. This is kind of like liberating for me even right now. And I'm thinking of certain things where it's like, I have plan B, so I'm not necessarily being excellent at everything I do. So this is good, dude. I love this.
Well, right back at you, man. And you know, I do want to thank you, you know, for being willing to talk about these things and for the conversation. You know, I do want to be very respectful of your time. So I do have one more question for you, then we can wrap it on up.
Cool.
So I really want to know, what question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Threw that one at me, man. What question should you be asking me? Dude. I think when I very first came on, and was looking at, like, what am I going to do? I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think the biggest thing that helped me, which would be a question you should ask me, is like, how important is mentorship and finding that person. We've said a lot about, like, you know, surrounding yourself with the right people, but, you know, having those comfortable people, and sometimes they're bros and they're buddies, but having that person that's been through it and, you know, maybe has a little more wisdom than what, you know, a young entrepreneur does, is key. And it's not that you have to look for them to make the decisions for you, but being able to glean off of them and understand certain situations and just looking at it from a different perspective. So mentorship in itself is crucial. And I think what really got me to the very, very next level in my life was hiring an actual coach, like a true coach that I could be real with, that I could throw Effenheimers at them, and we would fight back and forth. But at the end of the day, we would have takeaways, and we had true action plans that I knew that I was held accountable for. So the next call that I got on, if I didn't have those done, it was like a slap in the face. And so I think accountability, mentorship and accountability is clutch and key for any entrepreneur, certainly young ones starting out, to have that extra kind of helping hand, or just that guidance or that wisdom to get them where they're looking to go.
That's awesome. I think that's really, really helpful. And you know, I think this whole conversation, we've really touched on a lot of things that are really, really impactful. So I just want to say thank you very, very much for sharing this time with me. It's been very special. So thank you very much, Rylee.
Yeah, it's been great. Appreciate being on here, Ben.
Well, thank you again. And to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank y'all, and I will see all of you on the next episode. Take care now.